Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keaty. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives. Hey, Empire Builders, Seychelle here, and we are very excited because today kicks off the start of a 2-part series that we are incredibly passionate about. And you have, recording these episodes, you have Sarah, Kimber, Tiffany, and myself. All of us have been in the business over 14 years. And the reason why I say that to you and why it is so important is because we're going to be talking about what clients want from you, how to service them, and then how to have specific conversations around pricing as well in a market with growing inventory and shifting pricing. And that is so important if you have been in the business less than 14 years, or I don't know, maybe you've slept and lived a lot of life in the last 14 years and don't remember. We're going to talk specifically and tactically about what you can do to thrive in your business, to gain market share, and to grow when inventory is rising and pricing is going downwards. So tune in with us. You have a back-to-back this week and next week, part 1 and part 2 of how to work with clients in a changing market.
And I'm excited because we're going to get tactical today. We are going to jump right in.
I'm so excited for this, Kimber, because we've been working a lot, and I feel like you and I have had the distinct pleasure of working a lot over the last several months on mindset and grit and all of these things. And so today we really wanted to get tactical with you, and we're going to unpack something that every person, if you're in real estate, needs to hear. But I would venture to argue, if you are a business owner or a business leader in any industry, this episode is going to apply to you today, and you can just switch the data you're looking at, because we're going to unpack what sellers and clients actually expect from you in a slowing market, and how we as real estate professionals, or in your instance, business owners, show up and deliver that. So this is going to be a really awesome tactical episode. And because for us in the real estate industry, which all 3 of us are in, when homes aren't flying off the shelf, sellers are watching you more closely than ever, and they're looking for answers from you.
Yeah, and just because the market is slowing down, it doesn't mean that your leadership slows down. So we're going to talk about really how to respond to the longer relationship you get to have with clients, because that's all it really is, all right, your houses aren't flying off the market. You're getting to have a longer relationship with your clients, which means they're getting to see more from you. They're expecting possibly more from you, and you need to adjust how you're interacting with them. So let's jump into, what are your clients and sellers really thinking and what they want from us right now in this moment, in this market. Cannot wait to get into it.
So good.
Yes. So timely. I'm excited. So really in the beginning, first things first, a lot of times we show up with our mindset, right? You're in sales, you're talking, you're moving. If you've got a big business, you've got a bunch of buyers and seller clients. And so step 1 is to get into the seller mindset, right? Shift out of this idea of they have all the information you do, because they don't, right? You're the expert. That's why they've hired you. So they may not even realize that their market has shifted until their own home is sitting longer. And we all know, the concept of time, when you walk in and talk to a seller and they're like, oh yeah, my neighbor's house sold a couple months ago. And you're like, what? You pull it up, you're like, no, that sold 2 years ago. And that was a completely different market, right? That happens all the time.
Yeah. Last week, literally, they were just 4 months ago, they sold for $2.8 million. I pulled it up. It was 18 months ago, 2.4 million, 1,000 square feet bigger, and different markets.
That's right. That's right. So stepping into that mindset and recognizing, right, that they've got the context that they have, right? They drove by a property, maybe they pulled it up once, and so that's the price that they have. So when the momentum slows, what's going to happen, right? We know that it's always you, not me, right? It's definitely not my house.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times what happens on the agent side, and a lot of businesses, service business, we actually communicate less when we don't have the information. And so they're questioning the process. They're questioning you. And I'm like, I always tell, right, when we're doing coaching for agents, I'm like, the worst thing you could be is a silent agent in that moment in time, because you don't have any good news. So you just don't talk to them. And that absence of communication just lets the narrative get louder and louder, that it's something you're doing, right? That's not the market, right? Not the detail in the data. So being able to run comps, keep up that communication, even increasing that weekly cadence, running comps that are closer in, keeping the timelines closer, right? Being able to, like, showing stats are powerful, because then you're really getting as close to real-time data. I'm in DC, and our MLS has started to do weekly reporting, right? Of like, here's how many showings there were in this tight DMV market over the same period last year, the same period last week. That's really powerful data, because if their showings have dropped off, but everything else has or not, right, it gives you good information to make really good decisions.
I would venture to say too, like, if you are not educating yourself right now, like Kimber said, a great point of like, that a lot of times sellers will start to question you instead of questioning their house. If you're not showing up prepared and like really absorbing what we're giving you today, it actually could be you. So the reason why we're bringing this to the table is because we want there to be zero question in any client's mind that you are not the problem, and they should not be working with somebody else, but they need to be leaning in their relationship with you. Because my favorite clients are the ones that we went through the hardest markets together, because we had an opportunity to build a deeper relationship together.
Well, and it also goes to, you've educated yourself. You have all this information that Kimber just talked about, and you have to make sure you're proactively setting that expectation with them. It's not just like, oh, here's some data because they've noticed their house isn't selling. It's conversations that start at the very beginning with sellers right now. It is, here's how long it's taking homes to sell in your neighborhood. Here's something you need to know about the data before we even get into this. Here's the experience we have with how this isn't, maybe like, one of the things we're doing is changing the language around list price or for sale price, and we're calling it the coming to market price.
Love
and
that.
It is the like, hey, we don't know what your house is going to sell for, up or down, because we're in a market where it could go multiples in a weekend, or you could be on the market for 45 days, even with a beautiful house. And so you have to set an expectation that you really have no idea. And so I wanted to change the language around that. I got that tip from Phil Jones, who is great with words. And he was like, let's start calling it your coming to market price. It has them hold more loosely to, this is what we're selling our house for, or this is the correct, quote unquote, correct price. Because a lot of this is going to be, you're going to come on the market, you're going to see what the market says, and then you're going to adjust, Mr. Seller, about what this looks like. So all that expectation setting that you're doing with them at the beginning helps you. It makes your job better when the market says, nope, that's not the right price, or nope, conditions going to have to change, versus, say, Shell, you didn't do what you said you were going to do because I thought this house was going to sell immediately. And now maybe I'm more open, or I'll at least remember that you told me something a month ago about this.
So good. Well, and they're going to have to hear it 5 to 8 times before it sinks in, right? We think about, like, Tiffany and I both grew up in the media world, like, before coming into real estate. A consumer has to hear something 5 to 8 times before one single message sticks. So just telling them at the appointment and then talking to them about it 90 days, 180 days later doesn't work. So they need to be hearing this all the way along. And Tiffany will talk to us about cadence in just a second. But just remember, you saying it one time, that could be the first time they've heard it from you or anyone of their neighbors or their family. They're not aware that this market's even happening this way. So you're having to educate, not just sell and tell in this market.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think because you're educating, you've got to stay informed. And another great resource, I think, right, Sarah Wheeler has the Housing Wire podcast every single day, 3 times a week, right? Logan is on talking about, I think, probably some of the best, like, real-time national data, but important trends. Because if you've got a more analytical seller, it's also bite-sized. They're usually 20 to 30 minutes. And so if somebody's curious about what tariffs impact on the real estate, like, you're not going to know all things. You can't know all things. So it's a good way, like, I'll just start my day, listen and get the 20 minutes, kind of understand what's what's happening on the national side. And it's a great resource if you've got somebody that really wants to dig in and digest. So we talk a lot about being that local economist, but knowing what your resources are to just understand how all of these things that are moving are going to impact the housing market. And I think a really positive spin on right, we've seen, 15 plus straight weeks of mortgage applications increasing. That's actually a really strong sign for the buyer market. That actually is important for sellers to understand if they're been sitting on the market, right, 50 or 45 days, that, hey, we're seeing some good activity here, even though it's going to feel like it's going to take a little bit longer. So just knowing those resources, I think Phil always is a great resource in terms of the language that we're using. And Sarah and Housing Wire, I think, are another incredible place to just get some bite-sized market data that you can put into practice.
Okay, so stepping into the seller's mindset, what are they thinking and how do you need to help them? I mean, I think the last bow I would put on this before we move on is be curious. Don't assume they don't know, but also figure out what are the things that they are thinking about the market. What is your experience with what's happening in the real estate market? And that way you're opening up the conversation with curiosity versus the tell and sell concept. So assume nothing, be curious, and educate yourself so that you can really have the information to help set those expectations correctly and move them forward. That's our first tip. And that is a lot of juicy stuff in there.
I know.
We've got more for you. I'm so excited about it because I feel like just if you implement that one thing, your seller experience is going to go through the roof. But wait, there's more. The next thing is thinking about your operations and how it's working, because operational excellence builds confidence for the consumer. If they know or believe that you have it, they'll believe that you have it. So if you have a system that makes them feel confident and secure, that's going to get you much further in a market where you are going to stay in relationship with them for a longer period of time. Charisma is enough in a seller's market. This is going to be awesome. We're going to list this house. It's going to be great. Don't you trust me? Yeah, go. That'll work when the house sells in the first weekend. But you need more than that when you're going to be staying in a longer relationship with your clients. And so that's where systems are key. So what are the systems that you ladies have in place that help your sellers?
One thing that I love to do is I always like to tell sellers, before we hit the market and your first 2 weekends on the market, if we're not getting traffic, I'm not going to assume it's price first. We're going to check a bunch of different things. So some of the things we might check is your front photo the best photo to have? Maybe we should have a pool shot instead. You would be amazed. Sometimes you literally switch it to a kitchen shot or a different photo and all of a sudden showings start blowing out of the water.
Netflix
and you're
often tricks me when I'm
yes,
you changed the photo and now I'm clicked on a movie I don't want to watch.
Yes. But I think housing is exactly the same way. Don't assume you nailed it the first time. And I say that to clients when we're getting into relationship on the sellers is, listen, if we nail it and we have traffic blowing out of the water on the first time, awesome. Great. But if we don't, I'm not going to come beat you over the head for you to do price changes first. We're going to assume it's a bunch of other things first. It could be positioning. It could be that your MLS data is not loading properly into other websites and links are broken. I've had it where you map in the wrong city. We're going to double check everything. We're going to run ads. We're going to do some other things before I'm coming to you asking you to make concessions. And I think especially in a shifting market, that builds a lot of trust because they feel like, okay, we're coming to market, you're going to do your part, and then you're going to do a bunch of positioning things before you're coming to me to ask me to do anything additional for you.
Well, and what's great about that also is that's something you tell them, to Seychelles' point, they're not hearing you until you repeat it. So communicate that in the first week on the market. In your update, it's, okay, we didn't see the showings that we were all hoping for. So here's the 8 things that I've checked just to make sure that it's on our side. Let's just make sure our side before I talk to you. And I mean, we even say those sort of things in that email. Here are the things that we've done. Before I wanted to talk to you about price, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything, a weird technical glitch. I'm checking all of that this week. We're going to test another photo. And then if it still hasn't changed, we'll talk at our next meeting about possibly price. But for right now, full steam ahead. Here's what we're doing to make sure it's not broken on our side.
I also think setting the sellers up on this reverse MLS search, like having them be in the mindset of a buyer, right? And I will ask that, right, in the listing presentation. Would you be interested in having this? But I definitely have it on our side so that we know everything that's coming up as an auto search. So if literally the neighbor's house across the street lists, they're going to know it first because they saw the sign go up. But we want to be the ones that you never want to be caught when the seller's like, hey, I just saw the under contract sign go up when am I driving home and what's going on? What's it under contract for? And I love inside of that, if you're getting ready and you're thinking that a price reduction is a next fit, or you just feel like you're really misaligned with the seller about value, we've actually taken our sellers on a tour as the buyer because we've got a lot of diverse inventory. We're in an urban market. So you have a lot. I've got a semi-detached and a detached. And so nailing price can be really challenging. And so helping them see the difference between 2,500 square feet and 3,200 square feet, how it lives, how it lays out, how it feels, it allows them a lot of times to sort of step out of this idea of like, well, my house is better or my house is just like that one, to really feel like, oh, right, this third bedroom is actually half the size, or this really feels this way. And I think it has allowed us to really make some movement when we felt like a seller was really sticking and objecting on the price.
Well, and I think too, moving into the next spot, like cadence is really, in our case, the queen, since we're empire building females here, but cadence is queen when it comes to how you're setting the expectation with these clients. And so sellers crave predictability, especially in a market that feels uncertain. And so if you can give them an opportunity to know what to expect, that is a gift you are giving them, and you're giving your future self in relationship with them. And so let's talk about what that could look like as far as a plan goes. I'll share ours and you guys are welcome, to share yours as well. For us with sellers on Tuesday, the client gets an email, like Tiffany said, with like, here's the performance over the last week for us, because we send the email once a week and then we have other communication that layers on top of that. So we say, in the last week, here are the homes that came on the market in your area. Here are the ones that went under contract, and here are the ones that sold. And you give a little blurb of each of those. Then here's the showings that happened, right? Here's the feedback that we're getting around your home. And then here are the recommended next steps that we have that we're going to do and talk about. And I want you to take some time to think about it because we're going to have a conversation about it. That's on Tuesday. On Thursday, I say, I'd like to talk to you on Wednesday or Thursday this week. We do a phone call. Pick up the phone. This is not a text. It is a phone call. You want to be voice to voice and you want to be able to hear it. Here's this, conversation that we're going to have, voice to voice. Then we say, here's a strategy. We sent you the email. Do you have any questions on it? Do you have anything you want to talk through? Here's our game plan, whether it's switching things up, like Tiffany said, the price reduction, open houses, repositioning, whatever it is, right? Here's the game plan for this weekend, and then we're going to reassess after the weekend. Remember, most real estate agents, if they're showing over the weekend, they're not giving feedback until Monday or Tuesday morning often, if ever. So we have specifically on our team, we tell sellers, we're going to follow up to 5 times with these people that are showing your home proactively, because we know that people get busy and they forget to give feedback. So that is something that we actively go after to try to help, because we always say, if we don't know what's wrong, we can't fix it. So it's on us to try to get that feedback for you to help you make an educated decision.
I think the cadence is critical. And if you're a solo practitioner, you got to build it in and really force that consistency, because this is where we often fall down, right? Like we get busy, you start going. So in weeks 3 and 4, the cadence is where it's the most challenging. So I think certainly if you have an admin team, an operational team, building this cadence in that is not dependent upon you, the salesperson, is critical, because this is where it breaks down. We have the best of intentions, because if your client is calling you, especially if you have it built into your system and said, we're going to call you on Tuesday and 5 p.m. on Tuesday, they're sending you the note, you are behind. And so making sure that you build it in, you block time on your calendar, that is somebody on your team's one thing, that became a game changer for us. So when the seller report, that Tuesday report, is the one thing for the admin team, so they're on it. They're following up. They're getting the information from the agents. So really driving that both cadence and consistency, because that's where, back to the first point, right? Like it becomes you when they're not getting the information and have to guess at what's going on.
And then we move to the next phase, which is you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to you on these times. And then they're like, great. Now what do I talk to the client about?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. What am I going to say?
Yeah, you're like, I have to talk to them again next week. What am I going to do?
What exactly are we going to do?
One of the themes that we always think about, because if back to number 1, like put yourself in the seller's shoes, they know what they're doing. They have no idea what you're doing. And so the cadence of what have you done for me lately? Like basically that is the question they are asking you without asking you.
Every day.
Only the most
Every
direct
day.
only the most direct people will ever actually say the words. But they all want to know, what have you done for me lately? And so that's what you need to make sure. What are you doing for them lately? And what is all the stuff you can do and that's going to need to be done? And don't throw everything at this listing in the first week.
Oh, that's so
it.
true.
That's
That is
it.
so true, because you will have nothing left in your tool belt. Like, you think about it like a carpenter, right? A carpenter is going to start building something with one piece of wood and a couple nails. And then they're going to do the next piece of wood and a couple nails. You are a carpenter with this house and with this client. You don't build an entire house in one step. You build it step by step. It's the same thing when you're dealing with a client in a longer term market.
Yes. And I think that's really layering in those actionable adjustments. So it's back to that old adage, right? Under promise, over deliver. So you might actually have 50 things that you do. This is my 15-point marketing plan. Well, are you doing all 15 of those on day one? Or are you saying, hey, this is one? I think the reverse prospecting is a really powerful one to layer in. Even the calls, right? You start calling to the buyer agents, right? Who are under contract on properties in the neighborhood. There's all these things that you can start to say, like, hey, we talked about at the beginning, right? Like switching out the photo. Like these might be things that you do when you're in week 2, week 3, week 4, but throwing all of that out in day one, the seller, they're not even hearing all those things. They're hearing the top, hey, these are the top 3 things. Most people are lost after 3. So save items like 4 through 15 for the pocket things. Either things that you're doing that you know can boost a listing from the beginning, or things that you know, like say said, hey, week 1, our showings were down over what's happening in the market. Here's 2 strategies we're going to do because we're really focused on driving listings. We're going to do an extra neighborhood tour. We're going to add the ice cream truck this weekend to the open house. Like layer these things in so that you have an opportunity to continue to deliver at a high level.
And even if you're doing these things every week, like feedback, or you're targeting ads on socials, like whatever the thing is, maybe just don't mention it every week to them, because to Kimber's point, they're not going to hear everything. So even if you're doing it every week, remind yourself that you're going to talk about it on the 3rd week of every month, that you do this thing that you actually do every week, but you just need to talk to the seller about it with a frequency to where, all right, what are we doing this week? Oh, and don't forget, we've already been doing X, Y, and Z. And, and we're going to layer on the ice cream truck or whatever that looks like. Okay, so we're doing something. We're working this listing. We're not waiting on it. And the next thing that you need to understand is, in uncertainty, everyone's uncomfortable. You think you're uncomfortable because what are you going to say to them? They're uncomfortable because it's their house that they're living with on the market. And your job, your leadership job with sellers, is to help them make the best decision for themselves in a market they don't understand, in a industry they play in once every decade, and that feels really important to them. So you are the expert because you did what we talked about at the beginning. You know the stats, you know what's happening, and you need to not just manage the listing, you need to lead the sellers towards what they really want and how you're going to get there. Because, and we literally say this, like, I know this feels overwhelming to you, but this is just another day at work for us. And we can help you through it, because here's what's happening. Here's what we've done. Here's what you need to know. And then ask them what they think with all of that information they need to do. You'll get the opportunity to hear what they're really thinking when you ask a question like that before you get directive on shoulding them. This is what you should do.
Totally.
Like based on all of that, in your experience, what do you think is the right next step for us? Why is that important to you? Why, and you gather more information to help lead them forward, because then you can say, based on everything you've said to me about what's important and why you want to go this direction, here's my recommendation. But until you've gathered enough information from them about what they think and why they're selling, you can't lead them because you'll be pulling them. Versus, here's what you've said, here are the words you've used. Let me point you towards how to get what you really want, because I know it feels really overwhelming to you right now in this moment.
That's so good. And, it's a good reminder for me personally, Tiffany. I'm listening to you thinking, I need to be asking more on this because I am blowing into the room or blowing into the conversation going, okay, guys, here's the game plan. Huddle up. Let's do this. Like the coach, instead of going, hey, how are you feeling about this? What is important to you? We talked about price being the most important thing. Is that still important to you? Is timing becoming more important? I know you're building a new home and it's almost done, or whatever the situation might be. And so thank you for saying that because I actually needed to hear that for myself and our team this week. So that's awesome.
Yes. I heard a recent stat that 47% of home sellers reported that they cried during the process, and more than 56% reported it as being extremely stressful, right? So I think it's a good reminder that we do this every day, but for the average person, like they're only going to do this 3, maybe 4 times in their lifetime. And so it is an incredibly stressful process. And I love this, Tiffany, like this just check in. Like you are, yes, blowing in and you are the expert and you know what you know and you're experienced in doing it. But this idea of like our role is not just to list the home, right? We are guiding you through the market. We are strategy. We are team. We're going to provide the clarity. We're and I think that check-in of, is this still important to you? We know we have a client right now. She's 8 months pregnant. Poor thing, right? They have literally turned down the first 3 offers. Well, the issue is like, she's terrified that she's going to be stuck trying to move like in the middle of this baby. And so this priority of price is actually turned into a priority of timing. And so we're coaching the listing agent around, hey, why don't you go back and ask if that's still the priority? And once you unlock, the real issue was about timing. It was getting too tight, right? Like she could not imagine not knowing where she was coming home to after this baby. And so the answer, she just needed to know that she could have a settlement that went up further out, or what, like once you unlocked that one issue, now all of a sudden you could move forward and help them achieve their goals. But when they felt like they were resisting it, it was like, they just were like, nope, yep, it's a perfect offer. We're not taking it. And everyone's like, what's going on?
I love that. Well, and if you think about too, someone in real estate, the odds are most real estate agents have not been through a market with shifting numbers like this in their career. And I know, like, I've had agents with me 5, 6, 7 years. They've never seen a market like this. You've got to go back to like 2008 to 2011 to have experienced something like this. And how many realtors can we say, or real estate agents can we say, have been in the market this long? And if they have been, were they actually that experienced the last time around? And so we have to remember that on the buy side, those agents are newer at experiencing this, and you're having to set expectations differently. On the seller side, chances are they haven't been through this, and often the listing agents haven't been through this. And so if you're lucky, like the 3 of us are very fortunate that we've actually been through this market already, we're getting to whip out things that we haven't used in a long time and dust off tools that we haven't used in a long time. But the vast majority of people in the client experience and also in the real estate driving experience of being the real estate agent have not experienced this market. And that is very important to remember, that you're basically dealing with an entire team of newbies handling this sort of a situation.
And that's 14 years. Like, we're not talking about in the last 4 years. Like, you can be a realtor for 14 years successfully and never experienced a declining market. Because, like, we work with agents. I'm like, they've been in the business forever. And then I think, oh, wait, they started in 2012. They literally have never done this before.
Yeah.
And that was just a good reminder for me this week. Like, 14 years. You have to have been in this business longer than that to know what to do in a market that is shifting slower. And that is a wild amount of very experienced realtors who don't know how to do this with their sellers. So if you have been in the business for 13 years and think, why is this so hard for me? Cut yourself some slack. You've never done it before. It's crazy.
It's wild.
Well, and even for those of us who have been in it the 14 years, right? Like, we were watching a market that the prices were dramatically falling, that people did not have the equity that they have in their homes today. They didn't have these incredible rate locks, right? So part of it is also like, even for us, it's so different because they're saying like, well, wait, inventory is increasing, but prices aren't dramatically falling. And they're not, right? So it's like, we're having to say like, wait a minute, even the market we experienced 14 plus years ago is very different than the market that we are seeing today, which is just wild. So what do we need to do, right? We threw a lot out at you. And so if you've got listings right now, take inventory of those listings. I know, Say and Tiffany and I are all, we're going to do this exercise ourselves, right? Like, take inventory of those listings. Who has not heard from you or a member of your team this week? who can take a strategy that you've heard from us or that you've seen in your marketplace and layer it into one of those listings. Who might be waiting for you to step up, be that calm voice, reset expectations, reset the needs analysis. What is it that they're really looking for? And be that calm and confident voice in a very noisy and uncertain marketplace.
I love that. And this is really an opportunity for you. This is where reputations get made. This is when sellers say, my agent never stopped working for me, even when the market slowed.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, that's how you build empires. It's not with your charisma and your great personality. It's with trust, systems, and service that hold up even under pressure.
No pressure, no diamonds, right?
That's right.
So thank you guys for joining us today. Go check on those sellers, go check on those listings, and lead with purpose.
And if this episode resonates with you or a friend, or you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go back and re-listen to this, please leave us a 5-star review and please share this episode with a friend who needs to hear this too. Because if you're under 14 years, chances are you need this one as well. Thanks for joining us. Bye, guys.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Warning. You must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an auto dialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.